Friends, viewers.
Let's oil your pipes. In Pipeline, you will play an oil magnate during the infancy of the privatisation of the oil industry. The demand is high, so all you have to do is buy crude oil, refine it through a network of pipes that you've built, and make a hell of a lot of money.
Wait. That B-roll doesn't look anything like the review copy that publisher Capstone Games sent us.
Well, what does the review copy look like? I mean, it's fine. We can work with this.
Yeah, just, pour the oil in the top, comes out the bottom. That's the video, right?
Pipeline, I'm sure unironically, is a closed loop. The pressure mounts up and eventually erupts to shower your face with sweet, sweet dollar bills. It's an explosive game that will churn and churn and churn you through the ringer until eventually you come out refined and rich, or crude and collapsed. Let's have a look at its systems. Technically, Pipeline is a worker movement game where each turn you'll pick up your worker and place them on one of 10 possible actions. But I think it would be more accurate to call it a trundle through indecision. But that's not a criticism, it's a consequence of a game that is wound tighter than the president of your school's debate club. They still have debate clubs, right? This is $40. Remember that number because that is all the money you will start with. To make a little bit more, you'll need to buy crude oil. There's 4 markets that sell it at different prices and availability, and 3 different types of oil: orange, bubblegum, and vanilla. Let's buy 2 oily orange barrels because they're cheap, only $10 in total, and then we can just kick back, pass the turn, and start watching those oranges mature. Oh no, that is the secondary action alarm ringing in your head. But first, let's talk about worker movement games. Unlike worker placement, in these games you'll only have one worker. You move them somewhere, they do the thing that's on their location. In some of the best examples of the genre, like Istanbul or The Gallerist, there's consequences to that movement. You might create a trail you need to follow back, or maybe you're introducing extra costs to opponents to the location you are in. Pipeline does none of that. You can go where you like, do whatever, buy what you want, as long as A, it's available, and B, and this one is important, you have the money. Every time you take your action on the main action cross, you can take a secondary action, as long as the secondary action you want to take is right next to the main action you want to take, and it's gonna cost you an additional $10. You know what? I'll pay the extra $10 because there's only 18 actions in the entire game, and $10 is a small price to double up. Pipeline is undeniably about creating a slick engine that will burst oil through every pipe hole, and being able to get an extra turn, especially since for an extra $20 I can get myself an upgrade, and in the words of the Queen, these are banging. I mean, actually, at the beginning, they're not really, they're a little bit rubbish. Since at level 1, they're just more expensive ways of getting an extra tank or some extra pipes. But if you persevere and keep buying upgrades, you'll advance to level 2 and 3. These completely warp the economic rules that you are playing under to your advantage. They make you feel like you're doing something a little bit naughty that shouldn't be allowed. So we definitely want some of those. And of course we need pipes themselves. Thankfully the government is rubbish and has 4 big buckets of pipes that it's selling at garage sale prices. In what can only be described as an industrial pick and mix, you can buy 1, 2, 3, 4 or even 5 pipes from one of these quadrants. But just like in a real pick and mix, the more you buy, the more the cost will increase per pipe. 1 will cost you 5, 2 10, and all of a sudden 3 costs you 20, and so on. This was deliberately set up by the designer Ryan Courtney to punish you for being greedy. It all comes back to those 18 actions. You want to do so much, but the game allows so little. Except you can take sneaky shortcuts like buying 5 tiles all at once, and you'll pay through the nose for that. But designer Ryan Courtney, you can't trick me with greed. I'll play it safe and cool and just buy 2 tiles.
I'm sorry, Elaine. That is the "you ran out of money" alarm.
This is $40. bucks. They're cheap, only $10 in total. You know what? I'll pay the extra $10. 50 cents for an extra $20. I can get myself an upgrade. How do I get more money again?
You can't. Well, you can, you just don't want to. The only way you're making money in this game is if you buy oil and then send your person to refine it in your pipes and then eventually sell it to one of the markets. With one exception. Visiting the contracts and loans action space will offer you the wonderful prospect of getting yourself a loan of $15 that you never have to pay back. This might sound good, but actually it's about as fair as taking out a short payday loan. Every time you take a loan, you have to take one of these red cubes. And this red cube can burn in hell. For each cube at the end of the game, you'll have to pay back money. And remember, money is your score. If you've got one penalty cube, that's $20 taken away from you at the end of the game. 2 penalty cubes, $50, 3 penalty cubes, $90, and so on. And now let me draw your attention to what happens when you take 10 penalty cubes. Dun dun dun. Pipeline is a constant fight for survival. To sell your oil, you need 3 things to happen. First of all, you need oil in your pipes. Then you need a pipeline network that is able to refine that specific oil. And finally, the ability to sell it at a profit. Aha, you say. I'll sneak in and buy the oil whilst it's cheap at the crude oil market. Whilst I was busy doing that, however, someone else snagged the tiles I wanted from the government pipe supply. Another player claimed a contract that would have been perfect for me to get some quick sells. I can still get a contract, but that contract, oh, it's about as good as hitting up your local sushi spot during happy hour and finding out that all they have left is cucumber maki. I mean, it's still sushi, technically, but at that point, I might as well have just stayed at home and dipped some cucumber into a bowl of soy sauce. This is where Pipeline starts to show its brilliance. You don't have to look hard to find a tightly wound economic simulator, but frequently they feel like a lot of oysters and no pearls. So many times I've played the game that it's up its own cucumber, that it makes you feel like you've just done an 8-hour shift at the lumber yard and all you got to take home was 7 to 9 splinters and maybe a free log. What? Don't look at me like that. Pipeline made me do some of the hardest mental arithmetic in any board game ever, and I say that as a recent survivor of my very first 18xx experience. But it found time to deliver those little moments of joy and satisfaction by giving you just the right piece that slots perfectly into your plan. A ray of beacon and hope in a crumbling metropolis of dashed oil dreams. Which brings us to the final bit of the rules. Pipes and who wore them best. It might seem a bonkers idea to put a complicated spatial puzzle into an economic simulator. But then you remember something like A Feast for Odin, and suddenly you think, maybe it's not bonkers. Maybe it's genius. Oil comes in 4 grades, crude and the 3 levels of refined, which are low, medium and high. The more you can refine a barrel, the more its potential value, but each flavor of oil has a different amount of refinement steps it needs to become more sophisticated. Achieve the necessary amount of links in your pipe of the right color, and then when you send your person to that pipe, they'll take the oil with them and come out the other end with better oil. It's magical. Not only is it magical, but when you send the person to that pipe, they're so greasy already, they don't care. They'll climb through all the pipelines. Whatever tile you put that person on, they will go through every network of pipes that's connected to that tile, making for one heck of a devilish puzzle. Now you want to connect as many different pipes extending from one location, and finding those pipes isn't exactly easy. The government pipe supply is ever dwindling as your opponents swoop in like hawks and fly away with the pipes you wanted, somehow cackling and carrying that pipe in their beaks at the same time. And initially, not even all 4 government tile quadrants are available to buy from. In the first year, only the first 2 quadrants are available, and which one is available is determined by simply someone purchasing from them. Here you are, building your little oil empire with cool upgrades and mature oranges, only to watch the tiles you so desperately needed to make it all work get locked out. fiendish. It's an truism, but if restriction breeds creativity, then pipeline is a tight corset that will squeeze your breath out. I know our viewers are probably being a little bit suspicious because we do have a tendency to pull the rug out every so often, but pipeline isn't just great. It's
The best game that I've played this year.
whoa, that's strong, because, best game this year. I mean, you haven't even made like a music video for it or anything.
It's funny you should say that. I used to be so lonely, but then I saw your rainbow smile. Well, hi. I wasn't expecting to see you again quite so soon. You're just a barrel of grease, but you put me at ease. Oh, you are the pipeline to my heart. Oh, you are the pipeline, and the way you move is so refined. Oh, you are the pipeline. Oh, you are the pipeline. Oh, you are the pipeline to my heart. Pipeline is a game with as many twists and turns as a pipeline. When you set up a game, it will look exactly like the last game that you set up, but then you'll start to notice the subtle variations, the orders, the contracts, the end game valuations, even the tiles themselves. It's the same appeal as a Where's Wally book. You already know he's going to be on every page, but the puzzle comes from finding him within whatever else is going on. In the same way, you make decisions based on this particular game with this particular setup, and it never feels like there's only one correct path. Will you go big and gamble your pipes, or will you follow a more sensible path with more assured returns? You could sit there and do the maths, but honestly, it's impossible. So sometimes you just have to hit that button and see whether it feeds the goldfish or just lets all the water out the tank. This led to some of my best moments, my most efficient turns, my greatest piping. It also led to some minor catastrophes. Let's look at valuations. Each game you'll have a set of 4, and in addition to all the money you raked up for your final score, they'll provide bonus points for things you've achieved. They can be as simple as have a lot of orange oil, or harebrained, rewarding you immensely for having different types and different sizes of pipes attached to your machines. Oh yeah, machines. Instead of sending your person through pipes, you can get a robot to do it. What a world we live in. When you buy a machine, you place it somewhere on one of your existing pipe tiles, not only immediately destroying the intricate web of tubes you've been making, but giving you the ability to run all the pipes attached to that or any other machine for $15 every single turn. Buying a machine seems like a no-brainer, and I'd even argue that it's a necessary step to succeed. It's not if you're going to buy a machine, it's when. But buy one too early and you'll hamper your meagre pipe, struggle to pay for automation or even oil. And now consider setting up 3 of these to get all 9 pipelines of different colours and sizes to get the maximum score of 450. It's likely stupid, hampering all other aspects of everything else you've been building. But if you can pull it off, that's $450, a stupendous and likely game-winning bonus to add to anything else you've made. I love how intricate this design is. I found myself watching other players, not just to see how their actions affected mine, but more to see the mechanism spinning around. At times it was entrancing, like opening up the back of a wind-up clock to see the cogs and the springs synced perfectly in perpetual motion. I've never been to an oil refinery, but I did grow up near a lot of factories and pipes are not the most cosmetic of features. They're generally grubby, ganglion. If you want them in anything but grey, then you're probably going to come unstuck. Grubby this game is not though, and not just because the colours remind me of a bottle of iron brew, which we all know is made of girders and not at all oil, but because the colours each have a purpose and only that purpose. If the pipe is teal, it'll carry teal oil. There are red cubes, but there are no red pipes, so they represent financial death, and the player colours are different from the colours of the oil. Helpful. In equal measures frustrating and satisfying is the tessellation of the pipe tiles, especially if you're the sort of person that gets lost putting their jumper on. There were times that I would spot the tile, a combination of pipes that would perfectly nestle itself into the chaos, and it would come back round to my turn. No one else had taken it. I would pick it up triumphantly and then discover it was exactly the opposite of what I needed.
And as much as I'd like to provide a counterpoint a minute, the camera angle didn't change. That's better. And as much as I'd like to provide a counterpoint to Elaine's critique, Pipeline is a game that escapes criticism like a puddle of oil clutched with bare hands. For example, I thought that surely the stark confrontational nature of getting upgrades is going to be a sore pimple sticking out of this sleek design. Each game you'll have 5 different sets of upgrades, each coming at 3 levels. In your first year, you can opt to get a level 1 upgrade. Maybe I'll dabble in some human resources. Everybody loves those and they make your secondary actions free. But that's more circumstantial than you might think, and sinking in $20 at the start of the game is less rewarding than you might imagine. On top of that, I have to immediately block off that upgrade path for myself and anyone else for the entire year. That way, I can only ever buy a level 2 upgrade earliest at the start of the second year and a level 3 upgrade earliest in the third year. And whilst the level 1s are frequently a harsh investment, the level 2 and 3 ones, they are game warping. If I continue down the HR path, I can eventually get a second action every time I get an action. That's twice as much! That's not it. Every time I buy an upgrade path and block my own advancement for the year, I may, according to the rulebook, block another one. And that's 2 out of the 5 upgrade paths blocked for the entire year by one person's action. And don't get me wrong, I wasn't frustrated by the unforgiving nature of this. I wasn't frustrated by the restrictiveness. If your game plan relies on having a level 3 upgrade, you might as well forget about it. You'll have to sweat blood and tears to get your hands on it. It is that may that bothered me. Imagine if the designer of this game asked us if we liked it and our response was, "You may say that we have liked this game. There's just no room for this sort of indecisiveness. Either make me ruin my friend's evening or don't, and don't make me make that decision in front of them. That's rude." But then we realized that that decision isn't meant to be made during the game, but just before it. When learning Pipeline, there's enough systems to keep everyone busy with analysis paralysis and rubbing oil onto yourselves. There's no reason to add friction to the equation. But once everyone had a play or two, go nuts, get cutthroat, make it an oily human slip and slide with knives. Pipeline is not the first game that's very unforgiving for mistakes, and I don't mind a good gauntlet, and having played quite a few of them lately, I find these designs arrogant. Plenty of board games feature traps baked into the design, and players pursuing certain paths will find themselves in a dead end, except because they're playing a board game with other people in real time, they have to keep playing these paths out as if they are hitting their head into a wall over and over again. Pipeline also has traps, but unlike other games, these traps are symmetrical. There are no wrong moves because they are all wrong or right. Taking an upgrade as your first action might be brilliant or disastrous, and it all depends on what's your plan and how you execute it and what the other players do. And that's just 2 examples, and let me tell you right now, I was concerned over so many things when I read the rules to Pipeline for the first time. I feared for replayability because it's the same closed loop that you're running over and over in every single game. I feared for scalability because the game is much more open with 2 players rather than with 4. I feared that the game is too confrontational, it is not confrontational enough, and all these concerns washed away like oil washes off of a duck, except of course oil doesn't wash off of a duck. They die.
So is this a total recommendation from MPI?
I think so. I think it's slightly too unforgiving and too punishing to be as widely enjoyed as something like Great Western Trail. But for people who are looking for that sort of experience, it's perfect.
And then there's the rule book. I feel like we should be forgiving since it's designer Ryan Courtney's first game and it's Capstone Games' first original publication, but
it's not great.
Fine to make a game punishing as long as you don't make it punishing to learn.
But aside from that,
we love it. Efgar?
Yeah?
Just one thing.
Yeah.
Why are you holding a tiny puppy?
Well, you see, this tiny puppy is a reward for subscribing to No Pun Included. As soon as you click that subscribe button, you will be exposed to much more tiny puppies in your world, and also other board games that we love and other great board game reviews. So click on them, subscribe, and just rub yourself into cardboard as if you would rub yourself into a greasy barrel of oil. I'll leave you with that to think about. Bye.